I want to begin my report today with a special thank you to my dear friend and chairman of the governing board, David de Rothschild. I thank him for chairing this meeting, but also for allowing us to honor his extraordinary family at our annual Herzl dinner 2 weeks ago. For those of you who weren't there, you should know that we have presented this award to famous statesmen in the past: Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, Shimon Peres, Elie Wiesel, to name a few. But this was the first time that a recipient, the Rothschild family, had a direct connection to the man whose name is on the award, Theodor Herzl. It was a fabulous evening, and both David and his cousin Jacob gave stirring accounts of their family's ties to Israel and the Jewish people over 2 centuries. I also want to thank Shela Safra for her continued dedication to the World Jewish Congress. We are so fortunate to have Shela with us. A special thank you to Robert Singer and the extraordinary staff of the World Jewish Congress that worked tirelessly for all of us. My thanks to the Executive Committee and members of the Governing Board and delegates for being with us and participating today. Many of you were with us at the 15th World Jewish Congress Plenary Assembly in New York 18 months ago, when I was elected to a 3rd term. And I will say more about that later. But first, let me go over some of the major activity the World Jewish Congress had since the plenary in April 2017. In the following month, May, I met with the President of Italy, Sergio Mattarella, along with Naomi Di Segni. And we met at an exhibition devoted to the menorah, which was co-chaired by the Museum of the Vatican and the Jewish Museum of Rome. This was a most unique event, and a special event because it was the first time in 2,000 years that the Vatican partnered with Jews. It also emphasizes the important work we have done in building our relation with the Catholic Church and Pope Francis. I'd like to say in addition that many of these menorahs were in the Vatican's warehouses and had not been seen for centuries. September 27, 2017 marked a sad event, the opening of a memorial honoring Israeli athletes who were slaughtered at the Munich Olympics Games in 1972. In my opinion, it took far too long for this memorial to be established, but it was due to the perseverance of 2 widows of the Israeli athletes who were murdered there, Anki Spitzer and Ilana Romano. Also in that month, the World Jewish Congress Committee met in London at the private residence of the Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow. September is always a very busy month in New York with the opening of the UN General Assembly, and during that time, I held a marathon of meetings. First of all, the Foreign Minister of Greece, European External Action Service Deputy Secretary General, the Foreign Minister of Switzerland, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Argentina, and one of the most timely meetings I had was with the Prime Minister of Sweden, which has a serious upsurge in anti-Semitic attacks and difficulties in the relationship with Israel. I also met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Singapore. In November 2017, we held our World Jewish Congress Theodor Herzl Award dinner, in which we honored former Secretary of State Colin Powell. In January, we started this year with another important meeting with Pope Francis. further solidifying our relationship between the World Jewish Congress and the Vatican, which I can say safely is at an all-time high. In March, I flew to Poland for the 75th anniversary of the uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto, along with a large delegation from the World Jewish Congress. This came at a particularly strained time during the debate about the controversial Truth Law, which was later passed in Poland. I had a private lunch with the Polish president after the ceremony. I can report that he understood our concerns quite clearly and did take action. In April, I attended the first White House dinner, state dinner, hosted by President Trump in honor of President Macron. It was really something special. Again, this past September in New York, the UN General Assembly board meetings with German foreign ministers, and I met with the European Union Vice President, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Spain, Argentina's Foreign Ministry, and the Austrian Chancellor, as well as the Foreign Minister of Singapore. I will tell you, I was exhausted. It was during the General Assembly that I spoke at UNESCO for an event that was organized to combat anti-Semitism and racism. And while I said we were grateful that UNESCO held this event in a serious attempt to approve a long and disproportionate attacks on Israel, we cannot forget 50 years of bad behavior overnight. This honest relationship is, I think, a good one. And just in a few hours, I will speak, as we speak here at UNESCO headquarters, we will launch a website that will combat anti-Semitism and teach Holocaust awareness. We're also very pleased to have a new Director General at UNESCO, Audrey Azoulay. This past month, I spoke at the Great Synagogue in Copenhagen, marking the 75th anniversary of the rescue of Danish Jews, along with the Prime Minister and the Crown Prince of Denmark. By the way, to be a Crown Prince is pretty good. It's even better than being president. Sadly, Denmark was one of the few European countries that helped save its Jews. Denmark stands out along with Bulgaria as two of the only two countries that helped save their Jews. And we are so grateful for their courage, as well as the individuals in every country who risked their lives to save Jews. We must never forget that in many ways, the Holocaust was a European event where far too many people and governments either looked the other way or were active in rounding up the Jewish citizens. It has now been 11 years since I began being your president. At that time, the World Jewish Congress, I believe, has been re-energized and is working constantly on so many fronts. We just don't meet with world leaders to urge them to protect their Jewish communities. We've also started a security arm that goes to countries to assess their risks. Sadly, this is necessary in 2018. Many of you were here today with me yesterday when I spoke at the Grief Convention. I gave details of what is happening in the United States, especially after Pittsburgh, and how that's affected everyone's psyche. Because America has always been one of the safest places for the Jewish people. So, with the attacks now on the Jewish community of the United States, the constant attacks on European Jews, where 11 Jews have been murdered here in France in the last 12 years, the same number of those killed in one morning in Pittsburgh, and the constant, almost daily attacks in Israel, I think we have to face facts. Something drastically has changed in our world as we approach the third decade of what still seems to be a new century. I think there are several reasons for this upsurge of anti-Semitism. First, as much as the Catholic Church and other institutions have improved their attitudes towards the Jewish people, there is still a segment of the Christian population that looks at Jews with the same negative lens they have for thousands of years. Secondly, there are those people who believe the old lie that Jews control the world's economy. and they even see globalization as a Jewish conspiracy to control the world. Third, there is a hatred of Jews in the form of anti-Zionism. Much of this comes directly from Muslim countries and is coming into Europe as well, with a massive immigration from the Middle East. Fourth, most of the world's governments do not have the political will to stop the new wave of anti-Semitism from the right and the left. They don't do this in their own country, and they certainly don't do it in the UN, which has become the most outrageous critic of the Jewish state of Israel. All of these factors have a new and powerful platform in social media sites on the internet. And this is how we will fight the challenges we face. We will do it through education. If you haven't heard about the Auschwitz Pledge, you soon will. We want every school in every country to take this pledge, to teach at least one course on the Holocaust to every single teenager everywhere. We will supply the materials in every language. Everyone, everywhere, must know the consequences of unrestrained anti-Semitism and where it leads. Next, we want to see zero tolerance to every single government for any kind of anti-Semitic or hate in the country. When neo-Nazis marched in Chemnitz, Germany in September and displayed the Hitler salute, the police stood by and did nothing because they weren't given clear orders. Since then, we have been told this won't happen a second time. Those orders must be clear, and there must be zero tolerance for anything like this. We're also sending out security experts to assess the risks in every Jewish community throughout the world. We will live by our pledge to watch out and protect Jews everywhere. The World Jewish Congress is the most influential Jewish organization in the world with the strongest reach, but it's through the World Jewish Congress that we will press our defense of the Jewish world. Finally, I want to repeat something I said yesterday because I feel it's so important. If I can instill one idea, is that we are one people. I don't care if you're on the right or on the left. I don't care if you are Orthodox, conservative, Reform, or secular. None of that matters. Why should we make these artificial divisions? And by the way, I am backed up on this by a good authority. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Menachem Shearson, once said, and I quote, "Splitting Judaism into Orthodox, conservative, and Reform is purely an artificial division. For all Jews share the same Torah, given by the same God. While there are more observant Jews and less observant Jews, tack on a label does not change the reality that we are all one," end of quote. I completely agree with the Rebbe of blessed memory. We are one people, and when we speak in one clear, loud voice, we can accomplish anything. I have lived an extraordinary life, but I can safely say to all of you gathered here today that there is nothing I have done that I am more proud of, and I have found more important than as President of the World Jewish Congress for the past 11 years. I could never have done this alone, and I thank you for being my partners in this extraordinary organization. What a privilege it is to be able to work and help the Jewish people around the world, and what a great privilege to work with extraordinary people in this room. It is I who should be applauding you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. God bless you.